He never saw it coming. The moment Ethan Parker stepped into that restaurant to rescue his boss from a nightmare date, he had no idea he was walking straight into his own love story. But sometimes, the most beautiful beginnings happen when we're too busy looking out for someone else to notice our own hearts. Hey there, welcome to True Heart Stories. If you enjoy emotional journeys that warm your soul and remind you that love often finds us when we least expect it, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that'll make you believe in second chances. Ethan Parker adjusted his 5-year-old daughter Lily's coat as they hurried through the evening drizzle toward their apartment building. His phone buzzed in his pocket, the third time in 10 minutes. Whatever it was could wait until they were inside and dry. "Daddy, I'm hungry," Lily complained, her small hand gripping his tightly. "I know, sweetheart. Spaghetti night, remember?" He smiled down at her, his heart swelling as it always did when she looked up at him with those eyes, her mother's eyes. Once inside their modest 2-bedroom apartment, Ethan finally checked his phone. 3 missed calls and a text message from his boss, Alexandra Winters. *SOS. Bad date. Need rescue. Bellini's on 5th. Please, *. Ethan stared at the message, confused. In the 2 years he'd worked as senior graphic designer at Winters Media, Alexandra had never contacted him outside of work hours except for actual work emergencies. She certainly had never asked for personal help. Alexandra Winters was the epitome of composure and self-sufficiency. At 34, she had built her marketing agency from scratch into one of the most respected boutique firms in the city. She was brilliant, driven, and intimidatingly put together. The kind of woman who seemed to glide through life's challenges with effortless grace. And now she needed his help? Ethan glanced at Lily, who was already pulling out her coloring books at the kitchen table. He couldn't leave her alone, but he also couldn't ignore Alexandra's plea. She had been more than understanding when he'd needed flexibility after becoming a single father 3 years ago. She'd given him the opportunity to work remotely 2 days a week and had never complained when childcare emergencies arose. He owed her this. Change of plans, Lilybug. How do you feel about having dinner at a fancy restaurant tonight? Lily's eyes widened. Like a princess? Exactly like a princess, Ethan said, already dialing Mrs. Gonzalez from next door to see if she could watch Lily for a few minutes while he changed into something more presentable than his rain-splattered jeans and faded t-shirt. 30 minutes later, Ethan and Lily walked into Bellini's, one of the most upscale Italian restaurants in the city. He spotted Alexandra immediately, sitting at a corner table with a man who was talking animatedly, gesturing with his hands while Alexandra's smile looked painfully fixed. Ethan took a deep breath and squeezed Lily's hand. "Remember what I told you? We're going to pretend we just ran into my boss by accident, okay?" Lily nodded solemnly, taking her role in this rescue mission very seriously. As they approached the table, Ethan caught Alexandra's eye. The flash of relief on her face was unmistakable, though quickly masked with professional composure. "Ethan. What a surprise," she said, her voice carrying a hint of genuine emotion he'd rarely heard before. "Alexandra, hi." Ethan feigned surprise. "Sorry to interrupt your dinner. Lily and I were just grabbing a quick bite." The man across from Alexandra turned, clearly annoyed at the interruption. He was expensively dressed, with the kind of tan that suggested regular vacations to exclusive resorts. "This is Richard," Alexandra said, not bothering with his last name. "Richard, this is Ethan Parker, one of my senior designers." Richard barely acknowledged Ethan, his eyes dismissively sliding over him and Lily before returning to Alexandra. "As I was saying before we were interrupted, my investment portfolio has consistently outperformed the market by." "Actually," Alexandra cut in, standing suddenly, "I just remembered I need to discuss something urgent with Ethan about the Meridian campaign. Would you excuse me for just a moment?" Without waiting for Richard's response, she stepped away from the table and pulled Ethan aside, bending down slightly to smile at Lily. "Hello there. You must be Lily. Your dad talks about you all the time. Lily beamed, instantly charmed. Daddy says you're the boss of everything. Alexandra laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her usually serious face. Not everything. Just a small corner of the world. She straightened and looked at Ethan with grateful eyes. Thank you for coming. I know this is completely inappropriate and unprofessional, but... Don't mention it, Ethan said. What's the plan? Do you need a work emergency? Family crisis? Alexandra bit her lip, a surprisingly vulnerable gesture from a woman who commanded boardrooms with unwavering confidence. Actually, I was hoping you might join us. He's been talking about himself for 45 minutes straight. I don't think he's asked me a single question. I just need a buffer. Ethan hesitated. This wasn't what he'd expected. Sitting through dinner with Alexandra's date wasn't exactly the quick rescue operation he'd envisioned. Please, she added, noticing his hesitation. I'll make it up to you. Dinner's on me, of course. Lily tugged at his hand. Daddy, I'm really hungry. That settled it. Okay, but fair warning, Lily has strong opinions about spaghetti. Relief washed over Alexandra's face. Thank you. When they returned to the table, Richard was typing something on his phone, not even bothering to look up as Alexandra introduced Ethan and Lily as dinner companions. Richard was just telling me about his investment strategies, Alexandra said, with a pointed look at Ethan that clearly communicated her suffering. Fascinating, Ethan replied, helping Lily into her chair. I've always found that the most interesting investment is in people, though. Don't you think? Richard finally looked up, clearly annoyed at having his monologue interrupted. People are unpredictable. Markets follow patterns if you know how to read them. Daddy invests in me, Lily announced proudly. He says I'm gonna be worth bazillions someday. Alexandra's laugh was warm and genuine. Your daddy is absolutely right about that. The dinner progressed with Richard attempting to dominate the conversation at every turn, but Ethan skillfully redirected, drawing Alexandra into discussions about books they'd both read, asking her questions that Richard had never bothered to ask, and creating space for her to shine. Lily, for her part, was enchanted by Alexandra, who treated her with the same respectful attention she gave to adults. By dessert, Richard had grown increasingly sullen, clearly recognizing he'd lost control of the evening. When Alexandra excused herself to the restroom, he leaned across the table toward Ethan. I get what you're doing, he said coldly. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Enjoying dinner with my boss and my daughter? Playing the hero with the single dad routine. Women eat that up. But Alexandra is out of your league, buddy. She needs someone who can match her lifestyle. Before Ethan could respond, Lily spoke up. My daddy is the best daddy in the whole world. He draws the best pictures and makes the best pancakes, and he never ever yells, even when I spill juice on the carpet. Richard's face reddened as he realized he was being dressed down by a 5-year-old. When Alexandra returned, he abruptly announced he had an early meeting the next day and needed to leave. I'll call you, he said, though his tone suggested he wouldn't. Don't bother, Alexandra replied pleasantly. I think we both know this isn't a match. After Richard stormed out, Alexandra exhaled deeply. I am so sorry you had to witness that. And thank you, both of you, for saving me. That man was grumpy, Lily declared, chocolate ice cream smeared around her mouth. Alexandra and Ethan both laughed, the tension of the evening finally breaking. Yes, he was, Alexandra agreed. Very grumpy indeed. As they finished their desserts, Ethan found himself seeing a completely different side of his boss. Without the professional barriers of the office, Alexandra was funny, warm, and surprisingly down-to-earth. She listened intently to Lily's stories about kindergarten and shared her own childhood memories of growing up in a small town before moving to the city for college. When the check came, Alexandra insisted on paying as promised. Outside the restaurant, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening under the streetlights. "Can I give you a ride home?" Alexandra offered. "It's the least I can do." Ethan hesitated. "We're just a few blocks away. The walk will help wear out this little sugar monster before bedtime." He ruffled Lily's hair affectionately. "I'm not a monster, I'm a princess," Lily corrected him seriously. Alexandra smiled. "Of course you are. The very best kind." She knelt down to Lily's level. "Thank you for having dinner with me tonight, Princess Lily. You made it so much better." Lily beamed and, to both adults' surprise, threw her arms around Alexandra's neck in a hug. After a moment of shock, Alexandra hugged her back, her eyes meeting Ethan's over Lily's shoulder with an expression he couldn't quite read. "See you tomorrow at the office?" Ethan asked as Alexandra stood. "Yes," she said, suddenly seeming a bit flustered. "And Ethan? Thank you again. I won't forget this." As Ethan walked home holding Lily's hand, he found himself thinking about Alexandra in a way he never had before. Not as his boss, but as a woman, intelligent, kind, and surprisingly vulnerable. He pushed the thoughts away. Office romances were complicated at best, and with their power dynamic, it was completely out of the question. Besides, women like Alexandra Winters didn't fall for single dads with modest apartments and spaghetti night traditions. What Ethan didn't know was that as Alexandra drove home that night, she couldn't stop thinking about him either. She'd always respected Ethan as an employee, his design work was exceptional, and his dedication to both his job and his daughter was admirable. But tonight, she'd seen him in a new light. The way he'd come to her rescue without question. The gentle patience he showed with Lily. The subtle way he'd redirected Richard's self-centered conversation to include everyone at the table. The quiet confidence that had nothing to prove. Alexandra had dated her share of Richard's successful, ambitious men who looked good on paper but left her feeling oddly empty. Men who saw her success as either a challenge to overcome or a trophy to acquire. None of them had ever looked at her the way Ethan had tonight, like she was a person worth knowing, not just a successful businesswoman or an attractive date. But he was her employee. And he had a daughter to consider. And he'd probably only helped her tonight out of a sense of obligation to his boss. Alexandra sighed as she entered her sleek, modern apartment. For all its designer furniture and perfect styling, it had never felt quite like a home. Tonight, it felt especially empty. The next morning at Winters Media, Ethan arrived early as usual. He'd barely slept, his mind replaying moments from the previous evening, Alexandra's laugh, the way she'd spoken to Lily with genuine interest, the vulnerability in her eyes when she'd asked for his help. He was pouring his first cup of coffee in the break room when Alexandra walked in. She was impeccably dressed as always in a tailored charcoal suit, her dark hair swept up in a professional twist. Nothing in her appearance suggested the woman who had knelt down to hug Lily goodnight on a rain-washed sidewalk. "Good morning," she said, her professional mask firmly in place. "Do you have a moment to discuss the Meridian presentation?" "Of course," Ethan replied, matching her professional tone. In her office, Alexandra closed the door and immediately her composure slipped. "I want to apologize again for last night. It was completely inappropriate of me to involve you in my personal life." "It's fine, really," Ethan assured her. "Lily had a great time. She talked about you all the way home and asked if we could have dinner with Daddy's pretty boss again soon." Alexandra's cheeks colored slightly. "She's a wonderful child. You're doing an amazing job with her." "Thank you. That means a lot." Ethan hesitated, then added, "For what it's worth, that guy was an idiot. You deserve better." Something flickered in Alexandra's eyes, surprise, perhaps, or something deeper. But it was quickly masked. "Yes, well, dating when you run your own business is challenging. Men either want to compete with me or take care of me, and neither approach works particularly well." "What would work?" Ethan asked before he could stop himself. Alexandra looked at him for a long moment. Someone who sees me as a whole person, I suppose. Not just a successful businesswoman or a potential wife or mother, but all the complicated, messy parts too. She shook her head slightly, as if catching herself revealing too much. Anyway, about the Meridian presentation. And just like that, they were back to being boss and employee. The moment of connection closed as quickly as it had opened. Over the next few weeks, Ethan noticed subtle changes in his interactions with Alexandra. She stopped by his desk more often to discuss projects. She asked about Lily regularly. Once, she even brought in a children's book she thought Lily might enjoy, casually leaving it on Ethan's desk with a simple note, "For Princess Lily." For his part, Ethan found himself looking forward to their interactions more than he cared to admit. He noticed things about her he'd never paid attention to before, the way she absently twisted a strand of hair when deep in thought, her preference for Earl Grey tea on stressful days, how her professional reserve melted when she talked about her nieces and nephews. But he maintained strict professional boundaries. Alexandra was his boss. His very successful, very beautiful boss who could have any man she wanted. The last thing she needed was her employee developing inappropriate feelings for her. 3 months after the restaurant rescue, Winters Media landed their biggest client yet, a national retail chain looking to rebrand. The entire office celebrated with champagne and catered food, the atmosphere electric with excitement. In the midst of the celebration, Ethan found Alexandra alone in the conference room, staring out the window at the city skyline. "Not enjoying the party?" he asked, stepping into the room. She turned, smiling when she saw him. "Just taking a moment to process. This account changes everything for the agency. You should be proud. You built this company from nothing." "Not nothing," she corrected. "And not alone. I had help. Good people like you who believed in what we could create together." Something in her tone made Ethan's heart beat faster. They stood in silence for a moment, the sounds of the celebration muffled through the closed door. "Ethan," Alexandra began, then hesitated. "I've been meaning to ask you something." "Yes?" "Lily's birthday is next weekend, isn't it? You mentioned it in the staff meeting when we were scheduling the Meridian follow-up." Ethan nodded, surprised she'd remembered. "Saturday. She's having a princess-themed party at the community center near our apartment. Nothing fancy, but she's excited." Alexandra took a deep breath. "Would it be completely inappropriate if I stopped by? Just for a few minutes. I have a gift for her. But if it would make you uncomfortable having your boss at your daughter's birthday party, I completely understand." "She would love that," Ethan interrupted. "And so would I." The smile that bloomed across Alexandra's face made his heart flip in his chest. "Great," she said softly. "It's a date. I mean, not a date. An appointment. A plan." She shook her head, laughing at herself. "I should get back to the party before people notice the boss is missing." As she walked past him toward the door, their hands brushed briefly. Ethan felt the contact like an electric current running up his arm. Lily's birthday party was in full swing when Alexandra arrived. The community center was decorated with streamers and balloons, a homemade "Princess Lily's Royal Birthday" banner hanging across one wall. A dozen kindergartners in various princess costumes ran around playing games while parents chatted in small groups. Ethan spotted Alexandra the moment she walked in. She looked different outside the office, softer somehow in jeans and a casual blouse, her hair loose around her shoulders. She carried a gift wrapped in shimmering purple paper with a silver bow. "You came," he said, making his way to her through the chaos. "I said I would." She looked around, taking in the decorations and the children's excitement. "This is wonderful, Ethan." Before he could respond, Lily spotted them and came running over, her plastic tiara slightly askew on her dark curls. "You came too."